This billionaire had everything: power, money, and a mansion filled with staff. But in just 2 months, he fired 7 maids, one after the other for the smallest mistakes. He thought discipline was the answer to everything. He ruled his house like a business, cold and strict. His 5-year-old son watched it all happen in silence. Until one day, something unexpected happened. The boy started copying him, his tone, his words, even the way he ordered people around. And when the father walked in and saw his son treating the maid exactly how he treated everyone else, everything stopped. In that one moment, the billionaire finally saw himself through his child's eyes, and he didn't like what he saw. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. Marcus Brennan sat in his home office reviewing contracts. The house was silent except for the clock ticking. In another room, his 5-year-old son, Noah, played quietly with a toy train, careful not to make noise. Since Marcus's wife passed away a year ago, everything had changed. Colors once warm were now grey and cold. Marcus had become serious and distant. He rarely spoke to Noah unless giving instructions. Every word and cold glance was being studied by Noah day after day. The mansion was large with expensive furniture. Every hallway was spotless. Housekeepers rarely lasted more than a week. Marcus expected perfection. If anything was out of place, someone was fired. Noah watched workers come and go. To Marcus, everyone was replaceable. Order mattered most. Smiles were rare, laughter non-existent. Hugs hadn't happened since his wife died. Noah felt the tension, but didn't understand. He knew not to make mistakes. He wanted his father proud, but feared upsetting him. Marcus was a powerful businessman. People respected him, but many feared him. He believed kindness was weakness. At home, Noah watched closely, listening when his father spoke loudly. Noah paid attention to tone, firm, emotionless, demanding. Slowly, Noah copied him. Playing with toys, he gave orders the same way. "Sit there, be quiet, that's wrong." His expressions began changing. Noah smiled less, talked less, mimicked the strict walk and speech. Staff noticed, but no one dared speak. Nannies came and went. Some tried bringing joy, but Marcus called it a waste of time. Noah learned to hold back emotions. He quietly obeyed like the adults. At school, Noah kept to himself. Teachers were concerned, but calls home went unanswered. Marcus was too busy. At night, Noah sat looking at a photo of his mother. He remembered her soft voice and gentle touch. Now bedtime was quiet and lonely. Marcus would glance inside to check if the light was off and keep walking. Noah missed love, but didn't know how to ask. Sometimes he'd stand by his father's office door hoping for connection, but Marcus would nod and return to work. Over time, Noah stopped trying. Marcus didn't realize Noah was changing. He was becoming a mirror of the man he admired and feared. Marcus thought he was building strength, but was building distance. The house once with love now only had routine. Breakfast quiet, dinner quieter. Noah followed every rule, but what he needed most, attention, warmth, connection, was missing. Grace Sullivan woke before sunrise. Her apartment was tiny with cracked walls. She moved quietly not to wake her 9-year-old daughter Lily. Grace made coffee, ate bread, packed a sandwich, changed into her uniform. By 5:15 a.m. she was out. The streets were rough. 2 buses and a walk took almost 2 hours to the mansion. When she reached the gate, she pressed the buzzer. A guard let her in. Inside, everything was quiet and clean. A man handed her a task list. No welcome, just rules. She nodded. Grace started with the kitchen, already spotless, but she cleaned again. She moved to the living room. Cameras were on walls. Everyone looked careful, afraid. Grace noticed how quiet the house was. After lunch, she cleaned the hallway. That's when she saw him. A small boy sat on steps, hugging his knees. Grace smiled. "Hi there. You must be Noah." The boy blinked and nodded. Grace continued working, but felt his eyes following her. Over days, Grace worked hard. Every time she saw Noah, she greeted him. At first, he answered with one word, but after a week, something changed. Noah started waiting for her. One day, he showed her a toy train. Grace sat beside him and asked its name. He answered and smiled. It wasn't much, but it meant something. Grace knew patience. At home, Lily was quiet when younger. Grace understood how to listen without pushing. Grace's bond with Noah grew slowly. She became the only person who used his name warmly. She remembered his snacks, noticed new shirts, complimented gently. Noah began speaking more to her. He greeted her mornings and followed her around. Staff noticed but said nothing. Grace didn't break rules. She stayed respectful while making space for kindness. She folded Noah's blankets neatly. She left a note. "Have a good day." He kept it in his drawer. For Noah, Grace's kindness was new. He'd never experienced warmth since his mother was gone. It made him feel seen. Noah asked where she lived. She told him far away, waking very early. He asked if she had children. She said yes, a daughter named Lily who liked drawing and chocolate. Noah listened carefully. Then he asked if Lily had toys. Grace nodded. Dolls and books. That night, Grace found a small toy on her cart. Noah was gone. It was his way of saying thank you. Noah walked down the hallway with a rag, dragging it across the floor. Grace watched and smiled. He'd seen her do this. He bent down, wiped a corner, looked back. She chuckled. "You missed a spot," she joked. Noah laughed. He found a spray bottle and pretended to spray windows. Grace played along. "Very professional," she said. It wasn't just fun, it was connection. Later, while Grace folded towels, Noah appeared on a stool. "Do you always clean houses?" he asked. Grace smiled. "I clean houses now, but before I worked in a bakery." "Do you have a car?" She shook her head. "No, I take the bus, 2 of them, almost 2 hours." Noah seemed surprised. Grace nodded. "But I need this job." Noah asked, "Do you live with someone?" "Just me and my daughter. She's 9. Noah kept asking questions. "What does Lily like?" "Drawing, reading, ice cream." Noah smiled. "Me too." One afternoon, Noah asked, "Does Lily have friends?" "Yes, a few good ones from school." Noah didn't respond. Then he asked quietly, "How do you know who your friends are?" Grace looked at him. "Friends are people who make you feel good when you're with them." Noah nodded and looked down. Grace saw confusion, maybe sadness. She didn't push. The next day, Noah was quieter. He helped Grace carry towels. Then out of nowhere, he asked, "Why doesn't my dad play with me?" Grace stopped. The question was soft but heavy. Finally, she said, "Sometimes grown-ups forget how to play." Then she asked if he wanted to help polish stairs. Noah said yes, but the question didn't go away. That question made Noah look at his father differently. He began watching more carefully, how he walked, stood, talked. Noah practiced walking like Marcus. He repeated phrases, "That's not acceptable," or "I'm busy." He practiced serious faces. He wanted to understand why his father was distant. Maybe if he acted like his dad, he'd get noticed more. Grace noticed the change. Noah's body language shifted. He crossed arms more, stood taller. But when around her, he still smiled, helped, asked about Lily. That told Grace warmth was still inside. At night, Noah lay thinking about his father. He didn't hate him, he just didn't understand. Noah was trying to understand by copying what he saw. One part mirrored Grace, kind, patient. The other tried to be like Marcus, serious, quiet, in control. It was a quiet afternoon when Marcus arrived home early. Meetings were cancelled. He entered expecting usual things, but as he walked through the hallway, he heard a loud voice. "Clean the floor now!" the voice shouted. Marcus stopped. It was a child's voice yelling commands. He followed the sound. As he got closer, he recognized it. Noah. Marcus moved slowly, confused. What was his son doing? Marcus reached the doorway and looked inside the sunroom. What he saw stopped him completely. Noah stood tall, wearing a bright blue suit too big for him. Sleeves hung past wrists, pants bunched at ankles. His hair was combed, small hands locked behind his back as he paced with seriousness. On the floor, Grace was kneeling, holding a rag, laughing. Noah pointed. "That's not good enough. Do it again." Grace fell backward, laughing. Noah continued marching, copying Marcus's tone, walk, expressions. "I said no excuses. This house must be perfect." He didn't know Marcus was watching. It was just a game. Marcus stood frozen. Noah kept playing. Grace eventually noticed Marcus and her smile faded. She stood slowly. Noah turned and stopped when he saw his father. The room went quiet. Marcus looked at Noah. The blue suit, the posture, the harsh voice. It was like looking in a mirror. a small version of himself. It wasn't funny. It was shocking. He saw his own behavior had become a performance for his son. Noah was copying him because this is what he saw every day. Stern commands, no kindness. Marcus had never seen it so clearly. He didn't feel powerful, he felt exposed. Noah had shown him a hidden truth. Noah looked nervous. He pulled at the suit jacket. "We were just playing," he said in a small voice. Marcus didn't respond. Grace cleared her throat. "He was just pretending. Kids do that." Marcus slowly sat on a chair, body stiff. "Where did you get that suit?" he asked quietly. Noah pointed to a closet. "I wanted to be like you," he said. The words hit Marcus harder than anything else. He wasn't angry but didn't know how to feel. His son thought acting cold and strict was something to admire. Marcus realized everything Noah had seen was shaping him, not through lessons but through daily life. He was learning to become his father exactly as he was. The afternoon moved slowly. Marcus didn't raise his voice, didn't give orders. He just sat thinking. Grace took Noah upstairs. The blue suit was folded and placed back. Marcus stayed in the sunroom, staring at the floor. For the first time in a long time, he felt unsure. He thought he was doing right by keeping order, being strong. But now he saw the effect. Not on employees, not on his company, but on his son. Noah wasn't acting out. He was copying what he believed was normal. Marcus leaned back, closed his eyes, felt guilt. Not just for being distant, but for being blind. His house was clean, his business successful, but his son was becoming a reflection of his coldness. That night, Marcus knocked on Noah's door. Noah was in bed, holding a toy. "Can I sit?" Marcus asked. Noah nodded. Marcus sat on the edge, looking uncomfortable. "About earlier," he started, but stopped. Noah stayed quiet. Marcus finally said, "You don't have to act like me." Noah looked confused. "But I want to," he replied. Marcus didn't know what to say. He looked around and noticed notes Grace had left, drawings on the wall, folded pajamas, signs of someone who cared. "You're allowed to be different," Marcus said. Noah nodded slowly. Marcus stood and walked out. As he reached the hallway, he paused and looked back. For the first time in years, Marcus felt ashamed. Not because someone judged him, but because someone finally saw him, and that someone was his son. Marcus sat at his desk, but wasn't reading. He stared blankly. In his mind, all he could see was Noah in the blue suit. The voice, the orders, the way Noah stood. It replayed over and over. At first Marcus tried to forget. He told himself it was harmless, kids copy, but it didn't go away. That scene had opened something he didn't want to face. Noah hadn't been pretending to be a superhero. He was pretending to be his father. And that didn't feel like a compliment. Every time he thought of Noah yelling, "That's not good enough," a heavy feeling sat in his chest. He began noticing small things, the way his voice sounded, always short, dry, cold. When he entered a room, people stopped talking and stood straighter. No one greeted him casually. They looked tense. Even Grace stayed quiet when he passed. He used to think that meant respect. Now he wasn't sure. At dinner, Noah barely touched food. He kept eyes on his plate. The spark Grace had brought was fading. Marcus saw it but didn't know what to do. He couldn't ask if something was wrong because they didn't have that relationship. He wasn't used to emotional conversations. One evening, while reviewing files, Marcus paused. He closed his eyes and thought about how he'd been raised. His father was even stricter. Hard rules, no softness, always results. That's how Marcus learned to survive, to build a business. But now, looking at Noah, he wasn't sure that was right. He didn't want his son to feel he had to be tough all the time. Noah was only 5 but already acted like he had to prove himself. Marcus imagined him growing up into a man who never smiled, never asked for help, never said, "I love you." The idea scared him. The problem wasn't just with Noah. The problem was with Marcus himself. He didn't know how to change. He'd never said sorry to anyone. Where would he begin? The more he thought, the more he realized how disconnected he'd become. Every decision was about control. He controlled the house, the people, the schedule, the silence. But what about love? When was the last time he'd told Noah he loved him? Had he ever said it out loud? Marcus honestly couldn't remember. And the sad part, he didn't know how. Showing love had never been part of his routine. He believed providing a big house and safety was enough. But now he saw Noah needed more. He needed affection, attention, freedom to be himself. Marcus looked around his office, filled with trophies, certificates, awards. None of it felt important. All that success meant nothing if his son grew up thinking love looked like rules and orders. That wasn't the lesson Marcus wanted to pass on, but it was already happening. Marcus started watching Grace more closely. Grace moved through the house like clockwork. She cleaned spots, folded towels, checked rooms. But now Marcus paid attention to how. She never rushed, never raised her voice, stayed calm. She bent to pick up toys, wiped windows without being asked, checked if Noah had eaten, all while saying nothing extra. She never complained, never asked for anything. She just worked. Marcus realized she wasn't just cleaning, she was holding it together. One morning, Marcus walked into the hallway as Grace entered. She looked tired. Her clothes were neat, but eyes were heavy. Still, she smiled politely and headed straight to work. Later, while getting a document, Marcus passed the laundry area. The door was half open. He heard Grace's voice. She was on the phone. "Don't worry, sweetheart. If I lose this job, we'll find a way. I promise." Marcus paused. He heard silence. Then Grace said, "No, I'm not crying. I'm just tired." Her voice cracked. Then she ended the call and went back to folding. Marcus stepped away before she could see him. That sentence stayed in his head. It became clear Grace wasn't weak. She had something he didn't, something he'd ignored: humanity. She felt everything deeply but didn't let it stop her. She faced difficulty every day, early mornings, long bus rides, raising a daughter alone, and yet showed up with patience, warmth, willingness to help. Marcus looked at his life and saw the contrast. He'd spent years hiding emotion, controlling everything, thinking power meant distance. But Grace showed the opposite. She connected, listened, gave kindness without asking anything back. That was real strength, not from money or position, but the kind that holds people together when things fall apart. He realized he'd never respected people like her. But now he couldn't ignore it. She wasn't invisible. She was the person who reminded him what it meant to care, to feel, to be human. The next morning, Grace arrived as usual. She walked in, placed her bag, put on her apron. She was preparing cleaning supplies when the butler approached. "Mr. Brennan would like to speak with you in his office." Grace froze. Her mind went to worst-case scenario. She nodded, trying to stay calm, and made her way down the hallway. Her hands felt tense. Her steps were careful. When she reached the office, the door was open. Marcus stood near the window, not behind the desk. He looked different, not angry, not cold, just serious. "Come in," he said gently. Grace stepped inside. Marcus didn't sit. He stayed standing facing her. There was an awkward pause. Finally, Marcus took a deep breath. "I asked you here because I owe you something," he said. Grace tilted her head, confused. "I owe you an apology." Her eyes widened. She'd expected instructions, criticism, maybe dismissal, but not this. "I'm sorry," he said clearly, "for what my son said to you and for everything I've said or didn't say." Grace blinked, unsure how to respond. Marcus continued, "Noah was only repeating what he sees, the tone, the words. They come from me. I taught him that, even if I didn't mean to." Grace took a slow breath. She wasn't used to this. Not from him. Then carefully Marcus asked, "Would you still be willing to help him? And maybe help me too?" She wasn't quick to answer. She looked at him for a long moment, trying to understand if this was real. Marcus looked back with honesty. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Yes," she said quietly. "I will." Something shifted. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of understanding. Marcus nodded back. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "Also thank you for everything you've already done. I've noticed." That moment changed something important. It wasn't just about Noah. It was about respect. From that day, things began to change. Marcus didn't become a different man overnight, but something had opened. He started saying please and thank you. He held doors. He stopped barking orders and started giving instructions in a normal tone. People noticed, especially Noah. Noah was the first to see the difference. At breakfast, Marcus asked if he wanted toast or cereal instead of just placing a plate down. Noah looked up surprised and chose cereal. Marcus poured the milk, handed him the bowl, added, "Let me know if you want more." Grace nearby saw the moment and smiled. At first, Noah didn't trust it. He stayed quiet, watching. But as days passed, more changes appeared. Marcus lowered his voice when talking to staff. He checked in with Grace and listened. One afternoon he helped the cook carry supplies. Another time he asked the gardener how long he'd worked there and listened to the answer. The house started to feel lighter, not louder or busier, just less tense, warmer. Slowly people began to relax. Grace noticed staff started staying longer. The maid, who was afraid now, walked with confidence. The cook laughed more. Even the security guard smiled when Marcus passed. It wasn't because anyone received more money, it was because the energy had shifted. Respect had replaced fear. Communication had replaced silence. Noah responded the most. He followed his father not to copy but to be close. He asked more questions. He showed Marcus a drawing from school, and for the first time Marcus sat and asked him to explain it. Noah's eyes lit up. That moment mattered. These small steps were building something real, something they never had. Marcus still had flaws. He still had moments where he spoke too sharply or forgot to notice people. But the difference now was he saw it, and when he saw it, he corrected it. One afternoon he bumped into Grace and almost forgot to greet her. He turned back and said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you." She smiled and nodded. That line said everything. It showed he was trying. He wasn't perfect, but he was learning. Not from books, but from the people around him, especially Grace. And because of her, he was teaching Noah something better. That strength isn't about power, it's about humility. And love isn't shown through control. It's shown through connection. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.